So thank you to Ferret. I know this is a pretty daunting look for our friendo Ferret, because Ferret is a longtime Destiny player, and I mean, I've got to say I'm not actually all that surprised here. I'm not actually all that surprised. I don't think that there are probably a lot of people that were incredibly surprised by this. There have been a lot of things we've covered over about the past year and a half regarding Bungie and what has been going down there that has been a pretty daunting look at where Bungie's been headed. You know, there's been a lot of things happening internal there that have seemed like that company has changed drastically for the worse. And, you know, I'm never excited to see a company be losing employees or anything, but from just the trend of things I've seen coming out from underneath Bungie, being underneath Sony, and the things that I think of the big changes that have happened and the way they've been treating their employees and things like that, and some of the more tumultuous things that have happened with Bungie over the past year and a half. It's unfortunately one of those things that, I mean, it's not like I called it or anything. It's not like I was like, oh yeah, they're definitely going to be, you know, eliminating over 200 roles or anything, but I'm not surprised either. Well, and we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that, Ferret. So, this is part of them getting dissolved into Sony, I think, is what's happening here. So, I've got other articles up, and we're going to read into all of this. Yeah. So, I don't think it's just like layoffs, right? I don't think it's just layoffs, but I do think that what's happening here is that Sony is really starting to eat Bungie. You know, whereas, you know, initially whenever this acquisition happened, it was more like, you are going to be our subsidiary, but you're also going to be more independently still just doing what you've been doing, things like this. I'll pull it up and see if we need to talk about it or not, but I've got some other articles up, so yeah, thanks. Yeah, I'll read that as well. Thanks. So, this is all. I didn't really touch on this at all since Ferret sent this to me because, again, I didn't stream yesterday. But this is obviously some important stuff. It's gonna, I think, have quite a big impact on what happens with. I think it's obvious this is going to have a huge impact on what happens with Bungie moving forward and what happens with their games moving forward. Whether it be games that are already out like Destiny 2 that they're continuing to, you know, support, or you talk about games that they have coming to us like Marathon that are quite anticipated, I would say. But let's continue to read here and see what the so apparently this is from Bungie themselves. The new path for Bungie. This morning, I'm sharing, and this was 22 hours ago, I'm sharing with all of you some of the most difficult changes we've ever had to make as a studio. Due to the rising cost of development and industry shifts, as well as enduring economic conditions, it has become clear that we need to make substantial changes to our cost structure and focus development efforts entirely on Destiny and Marathon, the two games I just actually was talking about. That means beginning today, 220 of our roles will be eliminated, representing roughly 17% of our studio's workforce. These actions will affect every level of the company, including most of our executive and senior leader roles. Today is a difficult and painful day, especially for our departing colleagues, all of which have made important and valuable contributions to Bungie. Our goal is to support them with the utmost care and respect. For everyone affected by this job reduction, we will be offering a generous exit package, including severance bonus and health coverage. So people that are losing their jobs, there are definitely people losing their jobs, right? I realize all of this is hard news, especially following the success we've seen with the final shape, but as we've navigated the broader economic realities over the last year, and after exhausting all other mitigation options, this has become a necessary decision to refocus our studio and our business with more realistic goals and viable financials. We are committing to two other major changes today that we believe will support our focus, leverage Sony's strengths and create new opportunities for Bungie talent. First, we are deepening our integration with Sony Interactive Entertainment, working to integrate 155 of the roles, roughly 12% of SIE, over the next few quarters. SIE has worked tirelessly with us to identify roles for as many of our people as possible, enabling us together to save a great deal of talent that would otherwise have been affected by the reduction in force. So what I'm taking this as is 12%, 155 of the 220 are actually getting soaked up by Sony. I have an article that we're going to continue with this and try to confirm this with. But the way that this sounds is that there's going to be about 65. Is that right? Roughly? 65 layoffs. And then 155 of these are leaving Bungie and being soaked by Sony, I think. Second, we are working with PlayStation Studio leadership to spin out one of our incubation projects, an action game set in a brand new science fantasy universe, to form a new studio within PlayStation Studios to continue its promising development. This will be a time of tremendous change for our studio. Let's unpack how we ended up in this position. It's important to understand how we got here. For over 5 years, it has been our goal to ship games in 3 enduring global franchises. To realize that ambition, we set up several incubation projects, each seeded with senior development leaders from our existing teams. We eventually realized that this model stretched our talent too thin too quickly. It also forced our studio to support structures to scale to a larger level than we could realistically support, given, our two primary products in development, Destiny and Marathon. Additionally, in last year, our rapid expansion ran headlong into a broad economic slowdown. I've got to stop a second. A broad economic slowdown and a sharp downturn in the games industry. I'm not buying it. Yeah, and it definitely needs to be looked at, from business to business as well. If you're looking at these businesses that are failing, but I'll stick to my sentiments. I mean, if you've, there's definitely been a trend for a long time now of a lot of these bigger companies forgetting what it means to take care of the player base, take care of their employees the right way. I think if you do business the right way, you sustain. You look at somebody like Larian. Larian's a massive corporation. They're opening new opening new offices. They're hiring more people. They've been incredibly successful. They're not putting a bunch of, microtransactions in Baldur's Gate or anything like that. There's a, I think there's something to be said for standout big companies that are still doing good work in the industry. They do things with integrity. They take care of their player base. They listen to their player base. They take care of their employees. They do things the right way, and I think it pays off in the end. And I've always looked at Bungie as a company that I thought was doing pretty good until about the past year and a half to 2 years. There just kept being more and more news come out where it seemed like they were having bad things happening internally, and it does seem like maybe they overstretched. You know what I mean? It absolutely. We'll continue reading here and we'll have some discussion about this, but additionally, in 2023, our rapid expansion ran headlong into a broad economic slowdown and sharp downturn in the games industry. Our quality miss with Destiny 2 Lightfall and the need to give both the final shape and Marathon the time needed to ensure both projects deliver at the quality of our players expect and deserve. We were overly ambitious, our financial safety margins were subsequently exceeded, and we began running in the red. After this new trajectory became clear, we knew we had to change our course and speed, and we did everything we could to avoid today's outcome. Even with the exhaustive efforts undertaken across our leadership and productive teams to resolve our financial challenges, these steps were simply not enough. As a result, today we must say goodbye to incredible talent, colleagues, and friends. This will be a challenging time at Bungie. and we'll need to help our team navigate these changes in the weeks and months ahead. This will be a hard week, and we know that our team will need time to process, to ask questions, and to absorb news. If we want to talk about asking questions, we can get into a situation where there apparently was, you know, some things happening internally already previously at Bungie where there were some previous layoffs happening. A lot of morale stuff was going down the drain at Bungie. They were getting rid of a lot of the things that had been put in place previously to kind of make a nice place to work for people, things like that. People were losing jobs already. And one of the employees asked upper management during a meeting, is anything happening to, you know, executives, you know, pay to try and save other people's jobs? And they were like, we're not that kind of company. Quoted as saying, and I wasn't in there internal to that, but we covered that, you know. We covered that probably roughly, I don't know, 7-8 months ago to a year. It was pretty disgusting. You know, we're not the kind of company to ask our executives who make absurd amount of money to care about lower level employees, basically is what they said. Don't ask those kinds of questions. It was really, really gross. Today and over the next several weeks, we will host team meetings and town halls, team breakout sessions, and private individual sessions to ensure we are keeping our communication open and transparent. Bungie will continue to make great games. We still have over 850 team members building Destiny and Marathon. We will continue to build amazing experiences that exceed our players' expectations. There will be a time to talk about our goals and projects, but today is not that day. Today, our focus is on supporting our people. So we'll continue to run through some of these articles here and see what some of these other articles are hitting on, if it's anything different than this. This is what I would expect. Anytime something like this happens, and anytime you've already been seeing a team like this degrade fairly rapidly, I would say, and I agree. I think Bungie has done good things in the past. Past roughly year and a half has been pretty tumultuous for them. It's been a bad look at how a company can kind of buckle fairly quickly, and you know, to the detriment of a lot of the employees that have really held them up the whole time. You know, it feels really terrible to see this happen. My inkling here is that we'll probably get some more stories coming out from people that either are losing their jobs or people that are really still there but are really upset, and they'll want to remain anonymous about this situation. Usually that's the way this works. We'll end up getting some kind of stories from inside about what's going on, why this has gotten to this point, how they've been treating people, things like that. You know, I've got an article coming up that is going to be kind of a shot at the Bungie CEO too, so brace yourselves for it. So Bungie laying off over 200 staff as it forms a new studio within PlayStation. Again, I think this is just more of what we've already kind of talked about and seen here. Yeah. So I don't think we need to cover this one. That's already part of what we've read in this, but here is something that we haven't really talked about yet, and I wish this would not. So, Bungie CEO criticized for spending millions on classic cars as calls for leadership changes escalate. You also invited me to come see your new cars 2 days before you laid me off. Yikers. Yikers, dude. Following news of yesterday's layoffs at Bungie, CEO Pete Parsons has faced criticism, it should be, from staff for spending millions on classic cars since the studio was purchased by Sony in 2022, and bragging about his lavish collection as the company headed towards this week's latest brutal round of job losses. Employees, some of whom are now unemployed, have shared links to an array of classic cars purchased via the Bring a Trailer website, with Parsons' profile public and listing a vast number of auction wins. The earliest was in September of 2022, costing $34,000. Most recent was 1st of June this year, costing $91,500. Just a month before these latest layoffs. How exciting, wrote Parsons in a comment. I have wanted a C1 since I was a little kid, my second Hot Wheel ever in gold, going to its forever home. Parsons spent $79,000 on a vehicle in October of last year, just ahead of the previous layoffs, which we discussed briefly just a moment ago, followed by 3 more purchases over the remainder of the year, including a Porsche costing over $200,000. In total, Parsons appears to have spent $2,414,000 on vehicles. Sony purchased Bungie in 2022 for $3.6 billion. While it's unclear how much Parsons has earned since the buyout, it would appear Bungie's senior leadership has not taken salary cuts, while over the past 9 months, almost a quarter of the workforce has been laid off. This is one of those things that I always, anytime I see layoffs, and it's a massive corporation where there's big time executives making stupid amounts of money. I always ask this question. Did any of these executives do anything to try and offset what could have been done here? Were any measures taken by any of these executives to try and say, hey, be selfless, in the situation? As somebody who obviously Parsons is spending more on cars than most of these employees probably see in a salary in a year. Take any kind of pay cut to try and alleviate the absolute just terrible things that are happening here, and try and save some of these people's jobs. Most of them don't care. It's quite obvious, right? But these are not the kinds of people that I want at the top of my gaming corporations, right? I love video games, but I also dive into this side of the video gaming industry quite often because it shows the difference between good and bad gaming companies, in my opinion. Is this the kind of person you want at the top of your gaming company? I'll give you examples. I mean, Nintendo's done it in the past. Nintendo's found themselves in some terrible situations where they have absolutely made it to where, all their executives have taken reduced pay to save employees, stuff like that. And me, man, I'll call Nintendo out all the time for the stuff I find them doing that I find to be disgusting, But they've done things like that. It makes them stand out, You think Bobby Kotick would have done something like that? Absolutely not. Which is why I was saying the whole time during the acquisition of Activision Blizzard that Microsoft needed to fire him right away, So I think that there is a big difference, and I talk about it all the time. When you're going to address great companies in an industry that you love, do they take care of the consumer? They take care of us as consumers and gaming enthusiasts, the ones that actually have put them in the position they're in the first place anyways, right? By supporting their products and supporting their company with money. They wouldn't be there if it wasn't for us. He wouldn't have those flipping cars if it wasn't for us. Now, above even that is the employees, the people that are in the trenches doing the actual hard work, right? Also, I'm not saying that, that there are probably some people that have worked their way up in those companies and everything too from being low-level employees. But did they forget where they were at one point, that they used to be those people? Are they treating their employees as assets? Or are they treating those employees as expendable? You know what I mean? There's a big difference between good and bad corporations. And I have worked in terrible corporations, and I've seen the kind of culture change it takes to get things running the right way, and it's difficult. And it's really easy for bad people to come in and change that culture real fast. You've got to have people at the top with integrity, good morals and ethics to keep things working the right way and keep a really well-oiled machine, as it were, you know, as far as the company is concerned. I think there are many more bad examples of major gaming developers and publishers out there, unfortunately, than there are good ones. And I think this is that type of situation that really starts to show a company's true colors, you know. In a report from IGN last December following layoffs at Bungie, employees asked the department head, dude, this is what I was talking about before. In a report from IGN last December following layoffs at Bungie, employees asked a department head during a post-layoffs Q&A if leadership would be taking salary cuts, to which the response was Bungie saying, "We're not that type of company." Right? Like I said when we were reading the previous article. Parsons described yesterday's layoffs as some of the most difficult changes we've ever had to make as a studio in a blog post, citing the rising cost of development, industry shifts, and enduring economic conditions as key reasons for the cutbacks. The response to the layoffs online has been mostly anger, with Destiny 2's global community lead Dylan Gaffner in particular calling the layoffs inexcusable. Parsons' Bring a Trailer account was spotted and shared online following the news, with many calling for the CEO to step down. Bungie lays off 17% of its workforce. Unrelated, here is a list of cars the CEO has purchased on BAT, Bring a Trailer. Players and workers need to support each other. Agreed. Former Destiny 2 community manager Liana Rupert shared a story on the social media of struggling to find money for groceries while working at Bungie, while Parsons bragged about a few new expensive cars he bought and that we should come to his house and see them. Step down, Pete. Rupert continued, and I have not stopped digging since October. There's so much more to this that won't come out for a few more years to protect people, but I just want to say this. This falls squarely on leadership. As I said before, I think with what's happening here, I think there's a lot. We've seen this kind of coming, at least to an extent, for a little bit now, as Bungie has continued to kind of, the levees have kind of started to break for a while now at Bungie, and more and more stuff has started to come out. Unfortunately, I do think they used to be a decent company. But about for the past year and a half, they've really started to falter. And I think especially now, you're going to have more and more stuff come out about who Bungie is. There's going to be inside kinds of information and news that we're going to hear from people about what has been going on there, as whether it be people that got fired, laid off, whatever you want to call it, or people that are still working there that are just disgusted by what has happened. They'll be coming out with anonymous kinds of information because they don't want to get singled out. They're still working there or whatever, you know. Another former employee called out Parsons as a coward for setting his social media to private, adding, "You lied to my face, straight to it. You also invited me to come see your new cars 2 days before you laid me off." Parsons has since made his account public once more. Destiny 2 YouTuber My Name is Biff also called out leadership. "They've been reckless with the studio, its employees, and its franchises," he posted. "The problem is clear. Bad leadership. It needs to change." Destiny 2's most recent expansion, The Final Shape, has received praise from critics and players. Bungie sticks the landing as it finally brings together the threads of its epic first saga, reads our Eurogamer The Final Shape review. Seems even this success was not enough to prevent layoffs. This is really unfortunate. Again, I truly believe that at one point in the not too distant past, Bungie was a pretty decent company. And I can't tell you, I mean, you know, even as somebody that, I mean, I played Destiny a little bit, you know what I mean? But I'm not like a big fan. Like, you know, Ferret's a huge, you know, Ferret's our community Destiny 2 aficionado. You know, he's our go-to, and he's super willing to help anybody out that wants to get into the game and stuff too. Which is, and I know how bad this has to feel to anybody that's a fan. You know, anybody that's a fan of this company, anybody that has been an employee of this company. You know, I feel for the individuals affected by this. I really do. It's, you know, as somebody that, you know, obviously I'm very passionate about the industry as a whole, and I hate reading about this kind of stuff. People being treated poorly, people not being treated the right way. You've got these people sitting at the top of these companies that you can tell are just consumed with greed, consumed with, you know, their self-centeredness, and really have no idea what it means to be a video game developer or somebody that cares about video games at all. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't care about video games, doesn't care about the community, doesn't care about the consumer base, doesn't care about the fan base, doesn't care about the employees. How are they in those positions? You know? And you can see it crumbling. You see what it does. I mean, this is why I was saying before that I think we're going to get a lot more stories coming out. You can see through it. You know, anybody that's been in a position of working for a company that has had this kind of thing happen, everybody talks about it way before it really starts to crumble. Everybody talks about how bad it is. You deal with it. You know what I mean? It sucks. You're in a really tight spot. It feels terrible. You don't want, you know, people throughout the corporation they've been talking. I guarantee you, the people at Bungie that work at Bungie, especially low to mid-level employees, they've been talking about this crap for probably years now. You know? And they could see it coming. And here we are. It's coming to a head, and it's falling apart, and now all of us in the public are going to start getting a taste of you know, what has been going on there with all the information that's going to come out too. It feels terrible. It feels terrible. So we'll continue to follow it. I'll probably put something on the YouTube page covering all this pretty soon. I'll try to, it's very lengthy. This is lengthy right now, everything we've covered over this. And I'll do my best to kind of cut some stuff out here as I feel like it might be redundant, but a lot of this information is important. And so this is probably going to be a lengthy YouTube video, but I do feel like it's a very important thing for us to have most of this information in the video. So I apologize up front. And I think it's just another prime example of how companies need to not be run. Things have to change, man. They have to change.